In your opening statement, you talked about the use of senatorial holds and appointment holds. If you were senators trying to uphold the best traditions of loyal opposition, what do you think would be fair criteria for you to use in blocking the appointment of government appointees and judges?
Well, if I was a senator looking at an appointment of a judge, or any appointee for that matter, I would look to does this person's qualifications matter? Does his ideology come in line with the ideology that I believe is best for America? If I believe that his appointment will undermine our system of government and policies that I find to be beneficial to the American people, I would believe it advantageous to hold these appointees and not let them go into office, because a vacant office, to me as a hypothetical senator, would be better than somebody who's doing it wrong.
I believe senatorial holds, which are kept secret from the rest of the Senate and the public in general, would not be something I would stand for as a senator if I were a senator. Simply because I would want other people, when they place holds, other senators, and myself, when I would place a hold on any appointment or anything, I would want to be able to voice my opinion as to why I'm placing that hold.
If I were a senator, the way that I'd express my loyal opposition would be to reduce the polarization in the Senate today. In my opinion, I believe that the Republican Party isn't actually acting as loyal opposition due to how polarized it is. For example, in the healthcare bill, Senator Grassley stated, even if I agreed with absolutely every single thing in the bill, I would not vote for it unless the Republican Party told me it was okay to do so.
Let's examine at a different level what might be the relationship among the concepts of limited government, checks and balances, and loyal opposition.
To clarify, you want us to answer how loyal opposition uses these checks?
How may they be interrelated?
Oh, thank you.
I think that checks and balances and loyal opposition is interrelated because in the American system, the loyal opposition utilizes our system of checks and balances. A good example of this is the use of impeachments. And the House is given the power to impeach, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5, and the Senate is given the power to try on impeachments, Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6. An example of an impeachment is when President Andrew Johnson was impeached. He was a Republican, but he had Democratic ideals. And although he ran on the Republican ballot in order to gain points with Lincoln, he was not bolstering the ideals of the Senate at that time.
Well, if impeachment is a good example of this, does that mean we don't do it very often, because that we don't have very much loyal opposition? Because we don't impeach people very often.
Well, impeachment is only one example, and it's meant to say that the procedures for impeachment are so deter it so much, because you have to go through all three branches of government, and it's so hard to get these procedures for impeachment. The fact that it happens only when it's a divided electoral branches, such as with Jackson, the Democrat, and the radical Republicans, and the Tenure of Office Act, means that this is really an example of loyal opposition being able to have so much control that they're able to take this measure, which discourages this process and create impeachments, although no one's actually been convicted.
I would agree with my colleagues in saying that there's a direct correlation between these checks and balances and loyal opposition. In Federalist 70, Alexander Hamilton, when discussing opposing ideologies in government, he states that they promote deliberation, circumspection, and serve to check excess in the majority.
To examine your point of limited government, I believe that loyal opposition can use this power of checks and balances, as my colleagues have stated. But this is important in checking and creating a limited government, because I believe loyal opposition's one of its main purposes is to check the legislative agenda of the majority party. So therefore, while checking this and making sure that they are not becoming tyrannical, this is creating a limited government. Loyal opposition also affects the limited government system because it represents the potential minority of viewpoints that are not perhaps represented by the majority of people in the country.
You referenced other groups, and we talked about the People and the Tea Party a little bit. The First Amendment protects the freedom of the press. What role do you think the press is supposed to play in the loyal opposition, if at all, or in relation to the loyal opposition?
Well, I would almost consider the press. The press has some similar functions to the loyal opposition. That is examining, forcing the other parties to look at the majority's agenda under a microscope, especially in the British system where they don't have the filibuster. Their only checks are votes of no confidence. The press is necessary to look at the legislative agenda, what is really there, what arguments are being used. However, it's not the loyal opposition, because that is the press's responsibility, whether it is a Republican government, whether it's a Democratic government. Just because there's a certain government in place, it doesn't take away, for example, the New York Times, the Washington Post's responsibility to remain objective and keep government in line.
I think that the press also magnifies exactly what the loyal opposition is doing. I think that it allows for more people in the American system or in any system to see exactly what is happening. And currently, many believe exactly 22% of Americans do not feel like they have a lot of trust, or that the Congress can get things passed. And I think that the press has a big role in maybe undermining the confidence a little bit of the people if they see that the loyal opposition is making it hard to pass legislation.
Although I would agree with my colleagues, I think that there's an opposing argument to be made that the loyal opposition and the press are not interrelated. There's so much media and so much technology in our time today that we really don't know what is credible and what is not credible. So therefore, how can the people of the United States really say that this source, say a certain website, is right, whether and this newspaper is wrong if they have different ideologies? Therefore, I believe the loyal opposition needs to stay true to the constitutional principles of our government, whereas sometimes the press does not.